Hello, and welcome to Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. I sure appreciate you joining me today. Unfortunately, I have another horrifying story for you, and I chose this story because it highlights the never-ending question we discuss here on Dark Hearts all the time. Are people born bad, or do they become bad? The man at the center of this case did some of the most unimaginable things you can think of, and he seemed to take true joy in making other people miserable, in hurting other people. This story is heartbreaking, but it is also infuriating because there are some major enablers in this story. It has it all: abuse, murder, and incest. It's all terrible, and it has many twists and turns. And like I said, a lot of enabling by family members, which is something we often see in these types of crimes involving family violence. It's complicated and it's tragic. Don't forget to hit the like button. If you support me, it helps a lot. And subscribe to the channel if you want to see more dark stories. This is the story of a true monster, Stephen Pladl, the incest murders. I'm your host, Stacy Lee. Let's begin. Stephen Walter Pladl was born in 1975. Even as a young adult, Stephen reportedly displayed signs of extreme mood swings, rage, and inability to handle stress or criticism, which suggests early emotional developmental issues, maybe a personality disorder like narcissism or psychopathy. There is no publicly available evidence of Stephen receiving treatment for mental illness as a child or a young man, nor are there known reports of a formal diagnosis such as psychosis or trauma-related illness. However, behaviorally, his later actions strongly correlate with several clinical traits. In the early 1990s, Stephen began a relationship with Alyssa, a young woman he met when she was just 15 years old, and Stephen was 21. So this is illegal. It is illegal, and there's no talking your way around it. Alyssa basically ran away, and her parents found out that she was living with Stephen. They disapproved of the relationship, but they allowed it to continue. So we've got all kinds of problems going on here. These two end up getting married in 1995. Even though Stephen had been incredibly abusive to Alyssa, Stephen wouldn't work, and so Alyssa had to work 2 or 3 jobs. He also didn't do the dishes, he didn't clean the house, he didn't make the meals, which are things that, in my opinion, if you're not working, you got to take over that. Alyssa was responsible for absolutely everything. Stephen beat her, he treated her horribly, and still she stayed. And then Alyssa found out she was pregnant. Stephen had said he never wanted children, but Alyssa went through with the pregnancy and their daughter, Denise, was born. Now, I have to be a little careful about what I say here, so I will just say that the abuse inflicted on this baby was unthinkable. The baby was always covered in pinch marks from Stephen, and when the baby cried too much while Alyssa was out working and Stephen was at home, he would put the baby inside a cooler to muffle her cries. A new category of punishment for people like this. I'm telling you, I've said it 10 times now in the last few weeks. On Tuesday, we talked about John Marshall Randolph, and I said, I think it's time to set up a new category for these types of people who hurt kids. I'm serious about that. I just don't know that I think regular prison for people that steal cars and things like that, I think it's too good for people that hurt kids. And Stephen Pladl would be at the top of the list of monsters I think should belong in this new category that exists only in my mind. I don't know what I think should happen to these people, but I think jail is too good for them. As this abuse continues, and I'm going to try really hard not to come off as too judgmental of Alyssa, although I am absolutely judging her, Alyssa decides to put her 8-month-old up for adoption. Now, I cannot even wrap my head around that from a mother's perspective. You have bonded with this child. This is not giving up a newborn infant. Hell, my middle daughter, she doesn't have kids, but her friends do. And sometimes they come to my house with their babies, and I don't even want their babies to go home. I love it when they come over. And I am obsessed with my 2 granddaughters. So I cannot even imagine what it would take to get a mother to give up a baby she has bonded with for 8 months. And I want to believe in my heart that Alyssa was trying to do the right thing. But I can't even say that because later on, Alyssa gets pregnant again, twice. Look, I'm fully admitting this is judgment. So Denise is put up for adoption, and she is adopted by this couple, Anthony and Kelly Fusco, who live in Dover, New York. Anthony and Kelly renamed Denise. She is now called Katie Rose Fusco. The Fuscos, or Fuscos, I've heard it pronounced both ways, they provided Katie with a wonderful life. She was loved and cherished, and they had a beautiful family. The Fuscos have 2 biological sons who also loved Katie, and it seemed as though her life was going to be everything it would not have been had she stayed with Stephen and Alyssa. But this story is so tragic. We are getting there. Alyssa gets pregnant after giving Katie up for adoption, not once, but twice, and she has 2 little girls. Stephen's behavior does not improve, and this is why I cannot help but judge Alyssa. She knew what a monster this man was, and she brought 2 innocent babies into the world for him to abuse. And yes, it makes me angry. One day, Alyssa came home from work, and her little 3-year-old baby was in a tub of ice cold water, and she had been in that tub for an hour because she had had an accident. If anyone did 10% of something like that to one of my kids, I would be in jail. I'm not even going to lie, I'd be in jail. These stories make me feel like I want to round up a few good old boys and go take care of... Stephen Pladl needs his ass whooped. Yes, we try to be anti-violence here, but I have a t-shirt. It's one of my favorites, and it says sometimes violence is the answer. I don't mean that seriously, but I get very, very upset. I taught dance for 15 years. I really love kids. And even people that don't love kids and don't have kids agree on this. There is no excuse for hurting a child. So the little girls are around 7 and 11, living in this horrible house with 2 parents who are abusing them, Stephen directly and Alyssa, who is allowing it. And then Katie Fusco, their biological daughter, finds them on social media. What should be a happy reunion turns into the most unthinkable tragedy you can imagine. Katie Fusco is now 18 years old. She's always been interested in finding out who her biological parents are, and she's made several attempts to track them down. With the spread of social media, that becomes easier. And in 2016, Katie Fusco finds Stephen and Alyssa. She contacts them, and the 3 of them decide to meet up, also bringing with them Stephen and Alyssa's other 2 daughters. These photos were taken on that day. The family looks happy. The Pladl children are smiling. Alyssa is smiling, and Stephen he still looks like an absolute psycho. But if you were to look at these photos, you'd think, well, this is an exciting new chapter in these people's lives, right? Oh, it was a new chapter, all right, but one that was far from exciting or happy. Katie's adoptive parents were a bit concerned. They knew that their daughter had come from an abusive household, and now she was seeking out the people who had abused her. And so, of course, Anthony and Kelly Fusco were worried. Katie had always loved to draw, and she was planning on attending college. She had future plans. But after spending time with her biological family, that all changed. Suddenly, Katie announced that she was moving, not to go to college, but she was moving to Henrico County, Virginia, to live with her biological family. I am sure this broke the Fusco's heart, but Katie was 18 years old. She was an adult, and there wasn't anything they could do to stop her. Although I also feel bad for the Fuscos later on in the story. Just everybody in the story is messed up. It must have been hard for Kelly and Tony to watch their daughter go off and live with her biological family, but some of the things they do in this story are very questionable as well. Now, Alyssa is still the only person working in this family. This piece of shit Stephen Pladl has never worked. He sits on his ass all day, doesn't even take care of the house or the kids, and Alyssa brings home all the money. So with Alyssa out of the house all day, Katie and Stephen start spending all this time together, and soon Alyssa starts to feel like something is wrong. For one thing, she had threatened to divorce Stephen for years, and each time she did, he flew into a rage and said he was going to off himself. The fights were brutal, and so Alyssa would end up staying. And then all of a sudden, when Katie is in the picture, when Alyssa brings up the subject of divorce, Stephen is like, fine, I'll sign the papers. So that's weird. That's suspicious. And then Stephen, who had always had poor hygiene, scruffy, unkept hair, dirty clothes. Boy, this guy is just a fucking champion, isn't he? I already researched this story and know it, but reading those words out loud, he is just a catch. What a piece of shit. But anyways, he starts cleaning himself up. He gets a haircut and he goes out and buys new clothes, which is something he's never done before. He's suddenly sporting a cool new silver chain and dorky sunglasses that he thinks are cool. And Alyssa is like, this can't be what I think it is. Oh, it was exactly what Alyssa thought it was. Stephen Pladl and his own biological daughter, Katie, were having sex. Yeah. Yep, I just said that. I'm telling you guys, a whole other category for these people. Just yeet them right off the planet. And you know what? If Alyssa thought this was happening, she should have gone to the police. Not only is this totally immoral, it is illegal, and the police should have been informed. Finally, after almost 2 decades of abuse, Alyssa files for divorce, and she and Stephen split. This takes place in November of 2016, and they're now living in different homes. But the 2 younger girls are still spending a lot of time with their dad at his house when he has custody. In May of 2017, Alyssa confirms that Stephen and Katie are having sex because she finds one of her younger daughter's journal and she reads an entry that says something to the effect of, Dad used to sleep on the floor in Katie's room, but now he sleeps in bed with her. Straight to jail and then straight to hell. The journal entry even says, Katie is my big sis and I love her. I love how she's skinny, but how is she pregnant and gaining weight? And my dad calls her baby. Did he make her pregnant? My dad even says that she's my stepmom. He doesn't even want me to say or call her sister anymore. Katie is my sister. She's probably his wife now, but in nature, she's only my sister. Does she see me as a daughter or a sister? My Lord. I hope wherever these 2 girls are now, they are doing okay because psychologically they have been through, yeah. I'm so eloquent today, aren't I? These cases make me so angry and I'm not very good at speaking. I get flustered when I think about the fact that I'm sitting here telling a story, but this is somebody's life. I'm trying to contain my rant that I feel coming on. But I feel like I'm going to explode. This poor kid then drew these drawings in her journal where her father, Stephen, is depicted as the devil and the little girl is running away from him. I'm getting choked up. Alyssa had felt for a while that Stephen was brainwashing Katie to hate her. She would later claim that she never thought the 2 of them were involved in a sexual relationship and that when she found the journal entry, she became convinced. I don't know. But when Alyssa finds this journal entry, she called Stephen and said, I became hysterical. And I called him and said, is Katie pregnant with your baby? You know what Stephen's reply was? I thought you knew. We're in love. Just yeeted right off the planet. Alyssa was yelling at Stephen, telling him he is sick, that Katie is a child. His child. I read differing reports on what happens next. Some reports say that Alyssa did not immediately call the police. Others say she did. I'm going to give Alyssa the benefit of the doubt here. At any rate, the police get involved. The police contact Stephen Pladl and Katie and find out that they were married. They got married on July 20th, 2017 in Parkton, Maryland. The 2 lied on their marriage certificate, claiming they were unrelated. It gets so much worse. You guys, there were family members at the wedding. Some of Stephen's own family members were at this wedding. These photos from the motherfucking wedding were taken. They had a goddamned wedding service. They took wedding photos. They sent out invitations. Okay, now I'm officially mad. I gotta calm down. It gets worse. Katie's adoptive parents were also at the wedding. I don't even know what to say to that. I read reports that said the Fuscos felt like there was nothing they could do and they didn't want to lose Katie, so they had to go along with it. No, that is no. You do not go along with anything that involves a young girl marrying her own biological father, being pregnant by her biological father. So the police begin an investigation, and Katie goes on to give birth to a little boy that she names Bennett. The baby is born on September 1st, 2017. So now this guy's daughter has just given birth to his grandson. That happens all the time, where your daughter births a grandson. But no, it does not, because the daughter and the grandson don't have the same father. I am so ready for that spaceship at this point in time. We haven't talked about our spaceship for a while. If you're new here, we often talk about how we would like a spaceship to come and pick us up. Just take us for like a year to try to get a break from planet Earth, try to regain some of our sanity because of the craziness we hear as true crime fans and just gestures at everything. Human beings who have to deal with the insanity that's going on right now. Yeah, we are down for the spaceship to come. I am ready. Finally, in January of 2018, both Stephen and Katie are arrested in Knightdale, North Carolina, where they had moved to. They were living in a pretty nice house at the end of a cul-de-sac. Don't know how they were affording it. They were both charged with incest, adultery, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Stephen spends a month in jail, Katie less. Then both Stephen and Katie posted bail and they were released. So how does that happen? Where did they get the money? I think Stephen's bail was around $28,000. You only have to post like 10% of that, but still that's like $3,000. Who gave them the money? Because we know this loser doesn't work. So who bailed them out? When Stephen and Katie were released, the judge ordered that they have no contact with each other. Little late for that. It's just a little bit too late for that. And then Stephen Pladl's mother was given custody of Bennett. What? This is the same mother who knew that her son was abusing Alyssa, knew he was abusing his children. She went to the wedding where he married his own biological daughter, and she gets custody of the baby. I can feel my face getting hot. Might be a hot flash, might just be rage, might just be both. So Katie moves back in with her adoptive parents, who, God bless them, took her back in. At this point, Tony and Kelly Fusco were not talking to the media. Nobody could get a word out of them. I mean, they attended their daughter's wedding where she married her own father. What are they going to say? But they took her back in and they were living their lives. Now, every Tuesday and Thursday, Katie would go to either her adoptive mother or father's mother's house in Waterbury, Connecticut to clean her house. So this is Katie's grandma. And I guess the Fuscos were just waiting to see how this was all going to play out in the courts. They had no idea they would never get the chance to see the outcome. It's a Thursday in Dover, New York. Katie Fusco Pladl and her adoptive father, Tony Fusco, load into their car and begin driving to Waterbury, Connecticut for their weekly visit with Katie's grandmother so Katie can do her cleaning. Sitting in a minivan nearby, unbeknownst to Tony and Katie, is Stephen Pladl. You can see his van here on a neighbor's security camera. Stephen had been surveilling the Fusco house. Why? Because the day before, April 11th, Katie, who had gained a lot of clarity being away from this psychopathic narcissist, phoned Stephen and told him that their relationship was over. She said she now realized how wrong it was and that it could not continue. And we all know what happens when you piss off a narcissist. They're going to hurt you in the worst way possible. As Tony Fusco and Katie drive away from the Fusco house, Stephen Pladl follows them in his minivan. Other drivers watch as the two cars come to a stop sign, and then the driver of the minivan, Stephen Pladl, rolls down his window and sticks an AR-15 style rifle out of that window. Stephen begins firing. He shoots multiple rounds into the cab of Tony Fusco's truck. Both Tony and Katie are killed. Bystanders ran to the truck to find the two still strapped in their seatbelts, dead. Stephen Pladl drives off. What no one knew at this time is that this was not Stephen Pladl's first murder. On the day before, after getting the phone call from Katie informing him that she would not be continuing her relationship with him, Stephen Pladl went to his mother's house, who somehow had custody of this baby, Bennett, something I do not believe should have ever happened, and he took the baby. Stephen's mother, despite the court orders, allowed Stephen to take this baby to his house. That also should never have happened. This man should not have been allowed to be alone with this baby. The courts had ordered Stephen to stay away from Katie, but not the baby. The prosecutor would later call this an oversight. Wow. Apparently, Stephen told his mother that he was taking the baby to his house for a Skype call with Katie, who he had been ordered to have no contact with. Why didn't his mother say, no, you weren't supposed to talk to her? You see what I'm saying? It's just a mess. It's just a big pile of mess. While Stephen Pladl was alone with Bennett, he murdered his 7-month-old baby and hid the body in a closet. So now Tony, the adoptive father, Katie, his own daughter, and Bennett, his own son/grandson, oh my God, they are all dead. Stephen had been allowed all of this time because after he took the baby, he called his mom and said, hey, I've decided that I'm going to drive the 600 miles to Dover, New York to take Bennett to see Katie. His mother should have called the police immediately, and she did not. There's all kinds of blame to go around here. Stephen Pladl drove away from the shooting scene and called his mother again. He calmly told her that he had murdered Katie, Tony, and Bennett. He told his mother, don't go in the house. There's a key under the mat for the police. You should call them. Grace Pladl finally then decides to call 911.
He killed his baby and he's in the house.
Okay, you said that he told you he killed his baby? Okay, ma'am, listen to me. What's your name?
So the police rush to Stephen Pladl's house where they find the baby. He had been suffocated. An immediate search began with police in 2 states looking for Stephen Pladl. Like the coward and piece of human garbage he was, he had taken the easy way out. He was found with a self-inflicted gunshot wound sitting inside his van in Dover, New York, 18 miles from the shooting site.
20-year-old Katie Pladl and 56-year-old Anthony Fusco were killed in his pickup truck in New Milford yesterday by multiple gunshots from an assault rifle. Police say pulling that trigger was Stephen Pladl, who was Katie's father, husband, and father of her baby.
The father that raised her, the adoptive father, she had came up here staying with him in Wingdale, and next thing you know, there's a shooting.
Responding officers on scene were able to determine that the suspect in this case had died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Tony Fusco, Katie, and Bennett were buried on April 21st at St. Charles Cemetery in Dover Plains, New York. I don't know and I don't care where Stephen Pladl was buried. A Lifetime movie was made about this story in 2024. It's called Husband, Father, Killer, the Alyssa Pladl story. Wherever Alyssa is, I certainly hope she is making better choices for herself and especially for her 2 surviving children. Those girls have been through more than enough already. Whew, that one was a doozy. Thank you for joining me today on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you want to support me. It helps so much. I want to give a special thank you to my patrons. Your support means the world to me. And if you join my Patreon, you will get some personalized content that you cannot see or hear anywhere else. You know about my podcast, Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee, is on Amazon, Spotify, and Apple. I post brand new episodes every Monday and Wednesday. And don't forget about our fundraiser. If you watch this short video, it will tell you all the ways you can get a few bucks to me. We are trying to help solve some cold cases. The video explains it all, and 100% of your donations go to the cause. I hope you're well, my friends. I look forward to speaking with you in the comments. Stay safe and be kind to each other, and I will see you next time on Dark Hearts with Stacy Lee. Bye.